Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us once again on today's webinar. I feel so glad having you all join us today in exploring our topic on today's presentation on streamlining operations with AWS Well-Architected Best Practices for Efficiency. I am Oloja Oluwatosin and I'll be your host for today. As your host for today, I'll be guiding us through the conversation, moderating the question and answer, and ensuring that all topics is being attended to. Before we move on, I would like us to know that here in Secure Intelligence Limited, we have some housekeeping rules we adhere to in order for us to have a smooth webinar and in order for us to know that you are engaging with us. Firstly, please note that this session is being recorded and all recordings will be uploaded on our social media channels. So in case if you have missed any part of this webinar, you can go back to our YouTube channel to see it again. Secondly, attendees can react or raise hands during presentation, and other engagement required from attendees is at the discretion of presenter. If you have a question, please use the question and answer section during the session, and all questions will be attended to at the end of the presentation. Please also note that in the question and answer section, there is a link that will lead you to a calendar where you can book a one-on-one meeting with any of our expert consultants who are always readily available to help. Moving on, I would like to introduce who Secure Intelligence Limited is and what we do. Secure Intelligence Limited is a technology consulting company. We are AWS partners. This also means that we utilize AWS services for business objectives and goals. We also make use of technology in order to drive effectiveness, agility, and growth. I would like to take us through the agenda for today. But before we do that, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, the person of Masood. Masood is an expert when it comes to AWS Well-Architected Review, and is also a cloud engineering expert here in Secure Intelligence Limited. Hello, Masood. Good afternoon, and over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Oluwatosin. My name, like she said, thank you for that warm introduction. Like she said, my name is Moshood Adams. I'm a cloud engineer at Secure Intelligence Limited, and I'll be taking us through the agenda that we of today's topic. So we'll be looking at an overview of the AWS Well-Architected Framework, and once we are done with that, we'll be looking at introduction to operational excellence in AWS Well-Architected Framework. Once we are done with that, we'll be moving to automating routine tasks. And after we are done with that, we'll be looking at monitoring and observability. We'll be looking at improving operational efficiency. We'll be looking at streamlining workflows and reducing manual intervention. And finally, for today, we'll be looking at enhancing system manageability. Once we are done with that, we'll be looking at our question, having our question and answer segment. Next slide, please. Also, before I start going into the agenda we have for today, I want to say that if you have one or two questions while I'm going through this lecture, you can actually note that down so that once I am done with my presentation, you can actually look at your questions together and have me answer your question. So I'll be looking at AWS Well-Architected Framework. So I want to direct these questions to my participants. So when you look at your workload that your team is building or you have in the cloud, how confidently can you answer this question? Are you well architected? So the workload that you're actually just building, or maybe you have already in the cloud, is it well architected? So I want to direct this question to you, our participants for today. Next slide, please. So we'll be looking at AWS Well-Architected Framework. So AWS Well-Architected Framework is a collection of best practices for designing, for deploying, and operating secure, high-performing, cost-optimized, and reliable infrastructure for your application on AWS. So this is like the definition is saying is a collection of best practices for designing, deploying, and operating secure, high-performing, cost-optimized, and reliable infrastructure for your application on AWS again. So when you add that to this AWS Well-Architected Framework, it will help you to design, it will help you to develop, it will help you to operate a secure, high-performing, cost-optimized, and reliable infrastructure. So AWS Well-Architected Framework is an iterative mechanism that helps you to be successful in your cloud journey. So I want you to note this interactive in this definition. So when we say interactive, iterative rather, it means that it works in cycle. It doesn't like it is something that keeps going. It doesn't stop. So because your workload is dynamic, it is actually not static, because your resources that you have in the cloud, they are constantly working. You have data going in and out. You have your for your storage. You are continuously saving data. You are continuously deleting data. You are actually like deploying your applications on your servers. Your application is actually getting requests from the outside world. So it is a must to know that AWS Well-Architected is an iterative mechanism. So you have to like keep carrying out AWS Well-Architected mechanism, because your workload, your infrastructure is in constant state of work. So when you adapt to this, it will help you to be successful in your cloud journey. So we have verticals in AWS Well-Architected Framework. We have 3 verticals. We have the learn verticals, we have the measure verticals, and we have the improve verticals. For the learn, it will help you to learn the best practices and strategies for your cloud journey. So like I said, AWS has a collection of best practices. It is already established. So when you learn these best practices, you move on to the measure. So this is you measuring your architecture against best practices. So when you look at your workload, your architecture, you compare it against these best practices. And finally, it is the improve verticals. This is you improving your architecture by addressing the issues that are found, that you found out that when you carry out the measure vertical, which is you measuring your architecture against best practices. And when you do that, you'll be able to like understand, you'll be able to see the areas that you're actually not doing right. You'll be able to see the weak points. You'll be able to see issues in your architecture and your workload. And that way you have to like carry out the improve vertical, which is improving your architecture by addressing the issues that you found out. Next slide, please. We have 6 pillars of AWS Well-Architected Framework. We have operational excellence, we have security, we have reliability. But before we get to the other 3, I want to explain these first 3 pillars in AWS Well-Architected Framework. So when you adapt to this six pillar, it will help you. It will help your workload to be secure, cost optimized, performance efficient. It will help your workload to be sustainable. So those are the essence. They are the 6 pillars under AWS Well-Architected. It is not 7, it is not 5, it is 6. So we'll be looking at the first 3 pillars. So the first one is operational excellence. So this is your workload. This is you for you to be able to achieve this pillar, you have to like run your workload, you have to manage your workload, you have to monitor your workload to deliver your business value and continuously improve on supporting processes and events. Like you can see the continuous here. Like I said, that AWS Well-Architected is a continuous process. It is a continuous process. So when you adapt to this, it will help you to run, manage, and monitor your workload to deliver your business value, and you'll be able to continuously improve your supporting processes and events. So that is the operational excellence. And after that, we have the security pillar, so which is one out of the 6 AWS Well-Architected pillar. So this is going to help you to protect information system and assets from the outside world with risk assessment, mitigation strategies against unplanned failures. When you carry out this pillar will help you to protect your workload against any risk from the outside world, where you carry out risk assessments and you have mitigation strategies against unplanned failure. And also, for the third well-architected pillar we'll be looking at is reliability. This is your workload automatically recovering from infrastructure, power, or system failure with dynamic resource management to meet operational thresholds. So when you adapt to this pillar, if you have any failure, infrastructure failure, power failure, or system failure, you'll be able to prevent that. You'll be able to tackle that with dynamic resource management for you to meet your operational threshold. So those are the first 3 AWS Well-Architected pillars. So next slide, please. So also is a performance efficiency. So this is you using computing resources efficiently to support demand changes for delivering workload with maximum performance to meet the service level agreement. So this pillar is going to help your workload to use your resources efficiently to support demand changes. So when you have more demands or high demands, you'll be able to meet your service level agreement that you have with your customers. So when you adapt to this pillar, it will help you to do that. And also is the fifth AWS Well-Architected pillar is cost optimization. So when you adapt to this pillar, it will help you to eliminate unwanted costs or replace your resources with cost-effective resources without it impacting your business need and best practices. So when you adapt to this pillar, any service that is actually not cost-effective, it will actually help you replace services or that particular service without it impacting your business needs. So that is the purpose of the cost optimization pillar. And lastly is a sustainability pillar. So when you adapt to this pillar, it will help you to minimize environmental impact that your workload, your architecture is actually causing. So especially energy consumption, and it will help you to have efficiency in the running of your workload. So those are the 6 pillars of the AWS Well-Architected Framework. So when you adapt to this 6 pillar, they will help you to achieve all the benefits I listed when I was explaining what AWS Well-Architected is. When I said it's a collection of best practices for you to achieve a secure, a cost optimized, a performance efficiency, sustainable, an operational excellence workload. So when you adapt to this pillar, they will help you to achieve all these benefits that I just listed. So next slide, please. So for today, we'll be diving into introduction to operational excellence in AWS Well-Architected Framework. Like I said, operational excellence is a pillar, but that will be the focus of our discussion for today. So operational excellence focuses on running monitoring systems to deliver business values and continually improve supporting processes and procedures. So that is the definition once again for operational excellence. But for the 6 pillars under AWS Well-Architected, we have a concept called design principles. So what this the concept called design principles is going to help you to do is that for the 6 pillars, it is going to help you achieve these pillars. So for the operational excellence, we have the design. Okay, so we have the design principles under operational excellence. Like I said, it is like a roadmap or a guide for you to achieve those 6 pillars. And we have also in operational excellence. So we have the key areas, the design principle for you to be able to achieve operational excellence. The first is organization. So this is preparing, operating, and evolving systems in alignment with your business goals. So when you want to achieve operational excellence, you have to prepare, operate, evolve your systems to align with your business goals. That way, you are actually achieving operational excellence. Like I said, that the design principles is actually a roadmap or map to achieve pillars in AWS Well-Architected. So these are the design principles under operational excellence. Also is workload management. To actually do this, to achieve operational excellence, you have to also look at workload management. And this is saying that you effectively manage your workload to ensure performance and efficiency. So when you manage your workload to ensure performance and efficiency, that is you adhering to operational excellence in the AWS Well-Architected Framework. And thirdly is continuous improvement. So when you implement feedback loop to foster continuous improvement, you have that procedures or system or strategy in place. That is another way. That's the final way to achieve operational excellence in the AWS Well-Architected. So these are the design principles that we have under AWS Well-Architected Framework. Next slide, please. So we're looking at automating routine tasks. Like I said, this is one of our agendas for today. And one major area to actually achieve that, one major tool to actually achieve that, or technology, is using infrastructure as code. So we have AWS service called AWS CloudFormation, which is an infrastructure as code service in AWS. And we also have a very popular tool called Terraform. So Terraform is cloud agnostic, which means that it can actually work in so many popular cloud service provider. You can make use of Terraform in Google GCP. You can make use of Terraform in Microsoft Azure. You can also make use of Terraform in AWS Cloud to interact with your services. You can use it to define infrastructure as code to ensure consistency and repeatability. So you actually defining, managing, creating resource infrastructure using code. So that way you can actually implement or have your infrastructure in different environments, in different AWS accounts by just deploying that code in different environments. So that way it will help you ensure consistency and repeatability. So that is infrastructure as code. So when you want to automate routine tasks, you have to like make use of the technology called infrastructure as code. And I have looked at two popular options. We have looked at AWS CloudFormation, which is an infrastructure as code service in AWS, and we have also looked at Terraform, which is, like I said, a cloud agnostic tool that can work in so many cloud service providers. So, like I said, it will help you to define your infrastructure. It will help you to define your infrastructure as code. And secondly, to automate routine tasks is AWS System Manager. This is a configuration management tool service in AWS. It will help you to automate routine operational tasks like path management, software development, and run commands across instances. For AWS System Manager, we have so many services that are under AWS System Manager. But the whole concept of AWS System Manager is that it carries out configuration management, meaning that it can actually work on so many services all at once. Let's assume that you have 500 servers in your AWS cloud, and you actually need to patch those servers. It doesn't make any. It's not efficient to be going into these servers one by one to patch these servers. But you can actually use AWS System Manager to carry out operational tasks like patch management, software development, and across so many instances, across 500 instances. Even you can actually like limit these instances and say, okay, these are the 5 instances that I actually want to patch their servers. I want to carry out patch management. So, like I said AWS System Manager has so many tools under it. One is automation document. So this is you defining and automating tasks as a document. So you can use that as a document to carry out this routine task on so many servers all at once. So that is the power of our system manager. So that's another way for automating routine tasks in AWS. And lastly, to automate routine tasks, we have another service called AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda is a serverless compute service. So it will help you to automate task execution with event-driven serverless functions. So I want you to note the serverless here. Yeah, serverless. Whenever you say anything saying serverless, doesn't mean that it doesn't have server. But what it is actually saying is that you are actually not responsible for managing the server. This cloud service provider is actually going to do that for you. So anything about patch management, anything about maintaining that underlying infrastructure, you actually have no business doing that. What you actually need to do is to put in your business logic, the logic that will actually carry out what you actually want to carry out. So when you make use of AWS Lambda, you can actually use it to carry out log processing, you can use it to carry out backups, you can use it to carry out routine maintenance. What you actually just need to do is just to put in your business, your logic, your code that will carry out all these tasks, and AWS Lambda will do this for you. So that is another way for automating routine task in AWS. Next slide, please. So we're looking at monitoring and observability. So this is like the one. This like the name is saying, this is a major area in operational excellence. So we have AWS service called Amazon CloudWatch. So this service is helps to carry out monitoring for system metrics. It helps you to set up alarms and automatically respond to changes. So you can use AWS CloudWatch to aggregate, analyze logs from different services. You can actually use AWS CloudWatch to have a dashboard where you'll be monitoring and observing everything that is actually happening in your AWS account. So CloudWatch is a centralized service that will help you to monitor everything relating to your AWS services. Also is AWS S3. This is for gaining insight into application performance and trace user requests as they travel to your application. So when you make use of this service, for the likes of AWS CloudWatch, this is actually going to monitor system metrics based on your services. But for the AWS S3, this is going to help you get insights into your application performance and trace user requests as they travel through your application. So this service is going to like go into your application that you already deployed in your compute service. It will help you to look at the application performance. It will help you to get insight on how that application is performing as users are actually sending in their requests and they're actually getting back their response. AWS S3 is going to help you get all the details. It's going to provide you insights on how your application is performing. So, like it is saying here, it is saying it's going to help you to identify bottlenecks and improve your system responsiveness. So when you're able to like get insights on how your application is performing as request is going in, response is going out, you can actually improve your system responsiveness and say, okay, I actually need to like this code is not efficient. I actually like need to like write this code again. I actually need to rewrite this code and make it more efficient. That way you are able to use get insights using AWS S3. And lastly, for monitoring and observability, we have another AWS service called AWS CloudTrail. AWS CloudTrail is going to help you to record AWS API calls for audit and troubleshooting purposes. So AWS services, they interact with each other using API calls. So they make API calls. So when you make use of these services, you're able to see what different services are actually saying to each other, the way they are communicating. You're actually going to be able to like record all these calls that these services are actually doing, having with each other, and that way you can actually audit and troubleshoot any issue that you have in your infrastructure, in your workload. So these services, like I said, they are all making API calls to each other. So API CloudTrail is going to help you record this call, and whenever you need to actually carry out audit or troubleshooting purpose, based on what the services are actually like telling each other, the way they are actually interacting, you can actually use our CloudTrail. And also is that you can actually use CloudTrail to monitor, to record, because everything happening in your AWS cloud is actually making API calls. An example is that if somebody goes into your AWS account and maybe that person gets to your server and deletes an important server, you can actually see by using AWS CloudTrail, because that person is making AWS API calls by deleting or doing anything in your AWS account. So you can actually use that to figure out who did it, who did that using AWS CloudTrail. Next slide, please. So we'll be looking at improving operational excellence to optimize resource utilization by using AWS Cloud, AWS Elastic Load Balancer, and AWS Auto Scaling Group. So these two services in AWS will help you to right-size resources to match the workload, avoiding over-provisioning and reducing costs. So like I said, these two services, what you can use them to do is that you can use them to right-size your resources to match your workload. And when you make use of these services, it will help you to reduce costs and it will help you to avoid over-provisioning. Let's cite an instance where you are getting 50,000 traffic on Mondays, and on Friday of that same work, your usual traffic is times 3 of that. You are used to like get 150,000 requests on Fridays. So there's actually no point in you using a server that would work for that 150,000 traffic or workload on Monday, because it is not cost effective. So when you make use of AWS Elastic Load Balancer and AWS Auto Scaling Group, it will match your workload to your demand. So that way you can actually use a resource that will match the demand of Monday, and when it gets to Friday, it will actually add more resources to your servers, and it will be able to meet your workload demand on Friday. So there's actually no sense in you using a resource a resource of Friday for Monday, because it is actually not cost effective. So when you make use of these AWS services, AWS Elastic Load Balancer and AWS Auto Scaling Group, you'll be able to right-size your resources to match your workload. So that way you're actually improving your performance, operational efficiency. Also is a continuous delivery and deployment. So we have AWS tools, AWS services for that. So when you use AWS Code Pipeline, AWS Code Build, and AWS Code Deploy, you can use these services to implement CI/CD. So this will help you automate your deployment process for you to reduce error and speed up release cycles. So when you use this tool to set up your CI/CD pipeline, so it will help you to reduce error and speed up your release cycles. So when you have this in place, you can actually use this to carry out unit testing. You can actually use it to carry out static code analysis. You have a pipeline in place where what you actually just need to do is based on what you already configured, saying that this is going to be the trigger. Once I have this code here, once I deploy this code here, I want you to like put this on this instance. I want you to like carry out this static code analysis. I want you to like carry out this unit testing on this on this pipeline. So you can do that using these services to set up CI/CD pipelines. And also it's cost optimization. When you use AWS Cost Explorer and AWS Trusted Advisor, you use these services to identify and eliminate waste. So that way you'll be able to see which service, how much this service and different services are actually incurring. And now we can actually say, okay, this service is costing me too much. I actually need to like eliminate, shut down this service. I actually need to go and use something else. That way you are able to like optimize your costs. And also is leveraging sports instances, saving plan and reserve instances to optimize costs. So when you make use of sports instance, you make use of sports instance when you actually need to carry out experiments, when you actually don't need to, you don't want to commit to a server for a very long period of time. So when you carry out experiment, let's assume that you want to like carry out, you want to like deploy your code to a server. So there's actually no point in you getting an on-demand server to do that for you, because spot instance, they are very cheap, and but it has its own caveats, which is that it can be taken from you at any time. So when you have only when you want to carry out experiment, like I said, you can make use of spot instances, and in 1 hour or 30 minutes you're actually done with what you are doing. And also is using cost saving plans and reserve instances to optimize costs. So when you use reserve plan, savings plan and reserve instances, they're actually very cheaper. These savings plans are actually cheaper than using on-demand servers. So you are able to optimize costs when you use savings plans and reserve instances for your workload. So that is a way to cost optimize to carry out cost optimization. Next slide, please. Looking at streamlining workflows and reducing manual intervention. So this is one of our agendas for today. So to do that, we'll be looking at automation of operational tasks. So you can carry out automate incident response workflow using AWS Lambda. Like I actually said that, okay, Lambda is a serverless compute. When you only need to put in your logic, and that way you'll be able to like carry out so many things without you worrying about managing the underlying infrastructure. So you can use AWS Lambda to carry out automation of operational tasks, which is automating incident response workflow using AWS Lambda. Also is implementing automated remediation using AWS System Manager automation. I actually talked at length about AWS System Manager, where you can actually carry out automation on so many service instance at once. As the configuration management tool, whose primary job is to help you to carry out so many tasks on so many instances all at once. Also is AWS under streamlining workflows and reducing manual intervention is orchestration. So we have an AWS service that can help you to carry out complex workflow, which is called AWS STEM function. So when you make use of AWS STEM function, you tell it that, okay, this is the step I want to use in my workflow. So when you get to this, check this. When you are done with this, do this. You can actually set that up using AWS STEM functions. So it is used to coordinate and manage complex workflow. It is actually like written in JSON, and you can actually say that, okay, based on this condition, check this. If this does not meet this, do this. After you are done doing that, go to this service, go and do this there. When you are done doing that, go to this other service, go and do this there. You can actually implement that using this AWS service called STEM function. So it is used for automating the execution of business logic and operational tasks across AWS services. So when you make use of this AWS service, you can automate the execution of your business logic. It works like AWS Lambda, where you just need to put in your code. And I also believe it's actually serverless, where you are actually not responsible for to manage the underlying infrastructure. So it will help you to carry out the execution of your business logic and operational tasks across AWS services. Also, under streamlining workflow and reducing manual intervention, we have our self-healing infrastructure. So when you implement self-healing mechanism using AWS autoscaling group and AWS Lambda, this will help you to automatically detect and replace healthy instances or services. So I talked about autoscaling group the other time where I said that based on your demand, based on your workload demand, you can actually add and reduce the servers that you are actually making use of to support your workload. So also it has a mechanism that checks the health of your service, your servers. So if it sees that out of maybe you have 5 servers that you're actually using to run your workload, and if it sees that okay, one of this server is not able to, it will actually replace this server, it will shut down that server and provision another server to make it 5 servers, so that all these 5 servers are actually working to support your workload. And also is AWS Lambda, like I said, that Lambda is the serverless. So you can actually use Lambda to carry out self-healing infrastructure. You can use Lambda by checking your services, your servers, saying that okay, if this server is down, you can actually provision your Lambda functions to go into your account to check every 5 minutes to see if your servers are actually running. You can actually like specify based on your requirement. You can actually say, okay, for in every 15 minutes, coupled with AWS Event Bridge, which is a scheduler service. In every 15 minutes, I want you to like go into my account, check my servers. If a server is down, provision another server. You can actually do that using AWS Lambda. Like I want to emphasize, you have to like couple that with AWS Event Bridge for your Lambda to be able to do that. That is like an Event Bridge is a scheduler service. So you using Lambda and Event Bridge, you can actually set that up. And before I go further into my presentation, for all the content and the technologies I've been talking about, if you engage us as Secure Intelligence Limited, we help you implement this service based on your requirement, based on your business need. We give you we help you set up solutions, industry standard solutions that that will help you implement, that will actually work for your infrastructure. When you engage us, we talk at length, we give you industry standard, we share ideas with you on how to make your processes better. We share ideas with you on how to help you achieve your business objectives. We share you insights on how to improve your business processes. So once you engage us, we'll gladly do that for you. Next slide, please. So to enhance system manageability, which is also one of the agenda that we have for today, we'll be looking at centralized management using AWS AWS services called AWS Control Tower and AWS Organization. So these 2 services, they help you to manage multiple accounts. They help you to have a centralized governance and management of your AWS environment. So when you make use of these 2, you can actually say that, okay, if an instance, you have an AWS account for your finance team, you have an AWS finance for your sales team, you have an AWS account for your engineering team. You can actually centralize governance on all these accounts by saying that, okay, in this AWS account that you have for your finance team, I don't want a server to be ever going to be able to be provisioned in that server. You can actually specify that using AWS Organization to have a centralized centralized governance. While for the AWS Control Tower, you can actually say that, okay, in this AWS account, you can actually set up guardrails rather, to say that, okay, in this account, I don't want this person to be able to do this. I want this person to be able to do this. It will give you a centralized management governance for you to be able to manage your AWS accounts. Also is a standardization and best practices. So you can use AWS services called AWS Service Catalog and AWS Config to enforce standards and best practices across your organization. So it will help you to ensure compliance and operational consistencies through managed templates and configuration. So when you make use of these services, it will help you to specify and inform standards. Let's assume that for your business offerings or your business, what you're actually doing, it won't actually, from the security perspective, you want your S3 bucket, your storage to be encrypted. You can actually specify that using AWS config. So if anybody creates an S3 bucket and that person goes against encrypting that S3 bucket, your AWS config will actually flag that, and you might actually implement remediation in your AWS config that will say that, okay, whenever an S3 bucket is provisioned and want it to be encrypted, you can actually do this and even do more. You can actually say that, okay, let's assume that you have servers in your AWS architecture, and you actually don't want it exposed to the public internet, and you don't want it to be ever provisioned in the public instance. You can actually specify that using AWS config that says that if anybody goes into your account and provision and a server in the public subnet, this is what I want to do. Okay, I want to terminate all servers in the public subnet. I only want servers in the private subnet. You can actually do that. You can actually enforce standards using AWS config. Also is operational visibility. You can use AWS System Manager Ops Centers to centralize operational issues. Like I said, that AWS System Manager has so many tools under it. One of the tools is AWS Ops Center. So this is going to help you to have a centralized operational to carry out operational issues, to remediate operational issues. So you can implement dashboard and reporting of real-time visibility into your system performance. I don't know if you feel to question that what's the difference between AWS Systems Manager Ops Center to AWS CloudWatch. But for the CloudWatch, it is only going to like give you visibility monitoring for your AWS account. But for the Ops Center, it will help you to carry out have a dashboard on so many environments at a time. So it will, you can carry out remediation from a centralized operational from a centralized place. You can carry out operational issues, carry out operational fixes using AWS System Manager Ops Center. So that is that. Please, next slide, please. Okay, so that will be the end of my presentation. If you have one or two questions, it is time to forward your questions. So thank you so much for attending attending this lecture with me, for listening attentively. So if you have one or two questions, it is actually time to forward in your questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Masood. That was very informative and interesting. And I'm sure many of us here are as excited as I am to have been part of that knowledgeable session. I will be reading out the questions we have here, but before I do that, please, attendees, I would love to see your reactions in the comments. Drop your emojis and comments. Let's cheer up our speaker. He has really done an amazing job. So, Masood, I have two questions for you now. But while Masood is answering those questions, please ensure you drop your questions and all questions will be attended to. The first question for you, Masood, says, what are the long-term benefits of conducting regular well-architected reviews?
Okay. Like I said the other time while I was explaining, so thank you, Oluwatomisin, for that great question. So like I said the other time while I was explaining the verticals in AWS Well-Architected Framework, I said we have the learn vertical, we have the measure vertical, we have the improve vertical. So for the learn, this is you learning the best practices, AWS best practices, and from the measure, this is you measuring your workload against these best practices, and the last one is improving based on what you see in your account. You want to improve to meet the standard. So like I said an AWS Well-Architected is an iterative mechanism, meaning that it is something you must constantly do. It doesn't make any sense for you to like carry out AWS Well-Architected Framework review once in a year and just leave it like that and move to another year and like carry out another one, because your infrastructure, your workload is in constant state of work. So when you carry out this well-architected framework review, when you carry out AWS well-architected framework, it will help you to have a secure, a cost optimized, a performance efficient, sustainable workload, secure workload. So you have to like continuously carry out all these pillars to enjoy all these benefits. So if you don't do that, that means you are not actually going to enjoy all these benefits. So it is a must that you constantly, because your workload, your infrastructure is constantly working. You're actually adding, it might be that you're actually adding new features every now and then to your workload, and it doesn't make sense to just to not implement well-architected framework into your workload regularly. So if you don't do this, you'll be missing out. I believe this was able to answer your question, Oluwatomisin.
Thank you very much for answering that question in detail. I'll be reading out the second question here. It says,
Okay.
how do you ensure seamless integration of well-architected review recommendations into system workflows?
Okay. So thank you for that question. Okay, like you said, how do you implement recommendation? So to implement recommendation, to have like a seamless integration, so I will be looking at two major areas, which is prioritization. So this is ranking the recommendation. So like I said we have like three key verticals. We have three verticals. We have the learn, we have the measure, and we have the improve. So when you carry out the measure, you actually get the recommendation that will say, okay, this is what you're actually not doing right. So when you carry out this, you have this recommendation, you have to like rank this recommendation based on the impact and the urgency of the impact on your business needs and the urgency of the situation. Let's assume that okay, you carried out a AWS Well-Architected Framework review, and you saw that okay, you're actually not doing this right. This is actually very dangerous for you. This service that you're actually using is not cost efficient. It is based on the impact you are going to like take action. So when you do this, you have to like prioritize based on the impact and urgency, because like for the example that I'm actually using, saying that okay, this service is actually like costing you so much. It is actually not cost optimized, because you want to actually save costs. You are going to like carry out this recommendation immediately to ensure seamless integration into your workload. So that is one, that is prioritization. And also is automation, where possibly you automate the implementation of recommendation to reduce the risk of human error and ensure consistency. So when you carry out automation, it will help you to ensure seamless integration of AWS Well-Architected remediation. So those are the two key areas I'll be giving us for today. So I believe that was able to answer your question, Oluwatomisin.
Yes, thank you very much for answering these questions, and thank you for that beautiful presentation. So, attendees, are you dealing with costly cloud-built stocks, security risks, and performance efficiency issues? We at Secure Intelligence Limited are AWS partner experts, and we can help using our skill support to help you get your cloud infrastructure get well architected. And the good news about well architected review is it is free, but that is only if you get to the remediation stage with us. Do you also know that you can get $5,000 AWS credit at the remediation stage? If you are interested in learning about how well-architected review can benefit your organization, please don't forget to click on the link in the question and answer section to speak with any of our consultants to help you take the first step towards optimizing your cloud infrastructure. If you are also new to AWS and the cloud, you are not left out. With our CIL Academy, you can learn and develop cloud-based skills and even become a certified cloud practitioner. Our CIL Academy has a range of services that can help you get started. We currently have some courses for you on our 0 to 30 program where you can start your career in cloud engineering, data engineering, and as well as front-end engineering. We also have our AWS Skill Builder and AWS Instructor-led training, where we can train individuals, corporate teams, and businesses on the relevant skills required to migrate, build, and manage their AWS cloud infrastructure. Finally, for those of you who are preparing for your tech certification exams, including your certified cloud practitioner and other advanced certifications, we would like to introduce you to WizLab, which is currently the leading exam readiness solution for you. It provides you with comprehensive study materials, 25,000 practice questions, and hands-on lab sandboxes to prepare candidates for certification exams from leading technology vendors like AWS, Microsoft, and Google. If you believe you fall into any of these categories, or you find any of our services interesting, or you want to make any inquiries or have information about AWS Well-Architected, all you have to do is click on the link in the question and answer section and schedule a one-on-one meeting with me or any of my team. We urge you to join our Slack community if you want to be the first to know about all our upcoming events and programs. Please, you can connect with us across all our social media channels. You can connect with us on Instagram at @CIL_team, on LinkedIn Secure Intelligence Limited, on Twitter at @CIL_team, on Facebook at @CIL_team, and you can also connect with us on YouTube on www.youtube.com/CIL_team. Thank you once again for joining us today. We're really excited to have you and would love to see you next time. Thank you.